Right now, somewhere in your city, there are pigeons. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They're on the sidewalk outside your office, on the ledge above the bus stop, on the bench where you ate lunch yesterday. Free protein, walking around in broad daylight, and nobody touches them. You step over them like litter. But here's the thing. 100 years ago, your great-grandmother probably ate one for dinner. 5,000 years ago, that bird on the sidewalk was a delicacy reserved for kings. Same species, same DNA, same bird. Cities are full of them. So why doesn't anyone eat them? Or is it just a dirty animal that nobody in their right mind would put on a plate? It's not that you discovered pigeons are disgusting, it's that you forgot they were dinner. Let's start with the label, rats with wings. You've heard it. You've probably said it. But that phrase has an author, and he wasn't a scientist. In 1966, New York City Parks Commissioner Thomas Hoving used it in a press conference. One city official, one throwaway line. 14 years later, Woody Allen repeated it in his film Stardust Memories, and suddenly, an entire species had a reputation. 2 men, 2 sentences, 300 million Americans convinced. In 2008, a sociologist named Colin Jerelmack at NYU published a paper called How Pigeons Became Rats. He traced decades of public discourse and found something that should bother you. The reclassification of pigeons from food to vermin had almost nothing to do with disease or science. It was cultural. The anthropologist Mary Douglas had a term for this: matter out of place. Something becomes dirty, not because of what it is, but because it's where you think it shouldn't be. A pigeon in a medieval tower is dinner. The same pigeon on a subway platform is a pest. The bird didn't change. The frame did. It's not that the bird got dirtier, it's that your city moved in around it. Before that label existed, this bird was royalty. Pigeons were one of the first birds humans ever domesticated, at least 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. Ancient Egyptians kept them in towering dovecotes, purpose-built structures designed to house thousands of birds, and harvested both the meat and the droppings for fertilizer. The young ones, slaughtered before they could fly, were called squab. That's still the word on the menu when a restaurant charges you $25 a pound for pigeon and hopes you don't notice what it is. The Romans took it further. In the 1st century, the agricultural writer Columella described pigeon facilities holding 5,000 birds, with detailed instructions for fattening and selective breeding. By medieval Europe, the dovecote had become a symbol of status. In France, only landed nobles were legally permitted to build one. Pigeon wasn't peasant food. It was the opposite. For centuries across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, pigeon was the only reliable source of fresh protein during winter, when cattle were too valuable to slaughter and wild game was scarce. In 2012, geneticist Michael Shapiro and his team at the University of Utah sequenced the DNA of over 350 pigeon breeds and confirmed what historians had long suspected. Every single one descends from the wild rock dove, domesticated once in the eastern Mediterranean. That bird on your windowsill carries the same genetic blueprint as the one a pharaoh ate. So, for 5,000 years, humans loved this bird. Then, we loved it too much. Before European settlers arrived in North America, there were between 3 and 5 billion passenger pigeons on the continent. Not million, billion. Roughly 40% of all land birds in North America were a single species. The naturalist John James Audubon once described a flock a mile wide and 240 miles long that took 3 days to pass overhead. The sky went dark. People lit torches at noon. They were hunted with nets, with guns, with fire. No limit, no season, no restraint. Hunters would stitch a live pigeon's eyelids shut, tie it to a moving stool, and use it to lure flocks into range. That's where the phrase stool pigeon comes from. A real bird, blinded and bound, used as bait. Pigeon meat was so abundant, It sold for less than chicken in American cities throughout the 1800s. Barrels of salted pigeon were shipped east by the trainload. Nobody thought it could run out. Then it did. By 1900, the last wild passenger pigeon was shot in Pike County, Ohio, and somewhere in the Cincinnati Zoo, one bird was left. That's not overhunting. That's an entire continent eating one species off the face of the earth. And then, just as the last wild pigeon disappeared, something else showed up to replace it. After World War II, the American poultry industry engineered a revolution. Through aggressive selective breeding, the broiler chicken went from needing 16 weeks to reach slaughter weight to just 42 days, 6 weeks. The bird grows so fast its bones can't keep up. Many industrial chickens can barely walk by the time they're killed. Between 1935 and 1995, the inflation-adjusted price of chicken dropped by more than 60%. American per capita consumption went from 28 pounds a year in 1960 to over 92 pounds by 2018. The math buried the pigeon. A pigeon hen produces at most 12 to 16 squab per year. An industrial chicken operation generates over 150. The entire American squab industry, about 1.5 million birds annually, would feed America's chicken appetite for roughly 14 minutes. 14 minutes. That's not a competition. That's a rounding error. And while pigeon was disappearing from the plate, it was being rewritten as something else entirely. In 1918, a pigeon named Cher Ami carried a message for the U.S. Army's 77th Infantry Division, the Lost Battalion, trapped behind German lines in the Argonne Forest. She was shot through the breast, blinded in one eye, and lost a leg. She delivered the message anyway. The battalion was saved. Cher Ami received the Croix de Guerre and her body was mounted and placed in the Smithsonian. You don't eat heroes. And once a species has been cast as a soldier, a messenger, a symbol of something noble, putting it back on a plate feels like betrayal. Picture it from the pigeon side for a moment. For 5,000 years, this bird lived in towers humans built for it, ate grain humans gave it, bread on the schedule humans set. Then one day the towers came down. The grain stopped. Nobody reached for it anymore. For the first time in the history of its species, it was free. And that was exactly when it became invisible. The skeptic in you is already pushing back. And the skeptic has a point. City pigeons are contaminated. That part is real. In 2024, researchers in Comarca Lagunera, Mexico, measured lead concentrations in urban pigeon tissue and found levels up to 191 milligrams per kilogram in bone. Pigeons breathe street dust, drink pooled runoff, eat whatever humans throw away. Daniel Haag Wackernagel at the University of Basel spent 30 years studying urban pigeon health and documented roughly 110 pathogen species they can carry. Psittacosis, a bacterial lung infection you get from inhaling dried pigeon feces, is real. Fair enough. But Haag Wackernagel himself concluded that actual transmission to humans is, in his word, negligible. The risk is respiratory, inhaling dried feces, not dietary. Cook a pigeon to 165 degrees, and the pathogen argument disappears. And the contamination didn't come from the pigeon. It came from your city. The lead in its bones is your lead. The mercury in its tissue is your mercury. A farm-raised squab, same species, same DNA, is as clean as any poultry on the market. The animal isn't the problem. The environment you built around it is. We. And here's the part that should really bother you. Everything you just heard, the stigma, the contamination, the flinch, is mostly an American and British story. In Cairo, stuffed pigeon, hammam mashi, is a national dish sold on street corners. In Guangdong, roasted pigeon is a regional specialty ordered at family dinners. In Paris, squab still shows up on Michelin-starred menus at $25 a pound. The largest squab producer in America has been backordered for 15 years. The bird you call a rat, most of the world calls a delicacy. Same species, different story. We can trace the chemistry. We can date the stigma. We can name the man who coined rats with wings, and the year a filmmaker made it stick. What we can't seem to do is look at this bird and see what it actually is. The oldest domesticated partner we ever had, still showing up every morning, still waiting on the ledge outside the window of a species that forgot it was useful. Courtney Humphreys, in her 2008 book Super Dove, put it plainly. The feral pigeon is not a wild animal. It's a domestic animal we abandoned. The same as a stray dog or a feral cat, except nobody organizes a rescue. Nobody starts a fund. Nobody posts it on social media with a sad caption and a donation link. We just call it a rat with wings and keep walking. Her name was Martha. She lived alone in a cage at the Cincinnati Zoo for the last 4 years of her life. No flock, no mate, no sky. She was the last passenger pigeon on Earth. On September 1st, 1914, she died on the floor of that cage. The zookeepers packed her body in 300 pounds of ice and shipped her to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, where she was mounted and placed in a glass case. A few floors away from Cher Ami, the bird we ate to extinction and the bird we pinned a medal on, under the same roof. This morning you walked through a city with 400 million pigeons in it. Same genus, same family, descendants of the same rock dove that fed pharaohs and flew through gunfire. You stepped over them on the way to buy chicken. And the lead in their bones is a map of every poison your city puts into the air. Most people never stop long enough to wonder about any of this. You did. The bird didn't change. Your plate did.